James Chan hadn't worn jeans in over a decade. The last time he'd been in sneakers and a hoodie, Tech Vision was still running out of a 2-room warehouse with paper-thin walls and a dying fax machine. But today, he looked like any other. New hire, worn hoodie, scuffed sneakers, and faded jeans as he stepped into the biting October air before dawn. It was all part of his Undercover boss initiative, something he'd quietly done every year since the company blew past its first billion in valuation. Most years, he found broken software, undertrained managers, or some hotshot supervisor on a power trip. He wasn't expecting what he saw that Tuesday morning. He got to the company's service center at 5:30 a.m., keeping his head down as he walked past the near-empty lot. His breath clouded in the chill, and only a few cars were scattered across the space, graveyard shift most likely. Just as he passed the old recycling bin near the back fence, he caught a faint sound, a baby's cry. He turned. Parked in the shadows was a silver Honda Civic with foggy windows. Inside, a dim light flickered on. Through the condensation, James could make out the silhouette of a young woman cradling a baby in the back seat. He froze. At first, he thought about calling security, but something made him pause. The woman didn't look like someone trespassing. She was calm, precise. She changed the baby's diaper with the skill of someone used to doing it under pressure. Then she warmed a bottle using a portable car heater. There was no panic in her, just tired efficiency. As she emerged from the car, James recognized her. Sarah Martinez. She'd been on his employee list for the customer service division, 8 months in. Excellent metrics, no missed shifts. He'd read her name during onboarding review, but there was nothing in her file that suggested this. She had the baby in a carrier, a diaper bag on one shoulder, and a worn briefcase on the other. Walking briskly towards the side door, she looked just like any other working mother juggling the morning chaos. The building's daycare would be opening soon, one of the benefits James had proudly implemented years ago. And here she was, using it, after spending the night in her car. That image stuck in his head the whole day. He took a desk beside her during training and quietly studied her. Sarah was the first to arrive, last to leave. She was cheerful when others griped, helpful when others complained. When a new trainee nearly broke down in tears during a call, it was Sarah who calmed the customer and comforted her coworker. She had a warmth in her that couldn't be faked. Over the next few days, James watched her transform every morning in the restroom mirror. Makeup applied, uniform smoothed, hair tied back into a professional bun. No one suspected she lived in a car. No one saw the struggle. That night, James didn't return to his penthouse. He parked across from Sarah's Civic and watched her settle in. She went through the same routine. Changing the baby, setting up a tiny fan, covering the windows with dollar store sunshades. It wasn't a fluke. This wasn't temporary. This was her life. James felt a knot in his stomach. Tech Vision's mission statement, empowering dreams, transforming lives, was printed in massive letters on every office wall. But here was a woman who had done everything right. Showed up, worked hard, stayed kind, and still ended her day sleeping in a car. He made a quiet phone call to his executive assistant. "I need you to set something up for me," he said softly. Something confidential, because he wasn't just going to help Sarah, he was going to test her. 3 days later, just after lunch, a sleek black Tesla pulled into the Tech Vision lot. Out stepped Regina Walsh, tailored Armani suit and icy poise. She looked like she belonged on the cover of Forbes. Most assumed she was a high-ranking executive or an investor visiting the office. In reality, she was James's executive assistant, briefed, rehearsed, and playing the role of a senior recruiter from rival tech company, Innovate Corp Inside. Sarah was finishing her lunch, having spent most of her break at the daycare, feeding her 6-month-old daughter, Emma. She hadn't noticed the Tesla or the figure approaching until she was already in the hallway. "Sarah Martinez." Regina's voice had that calm, confident authority that made people stop in their tracks. Do you have a moment? Sarah blinked, nodding slowly. Regina guided her into a small conference room, her heels clicking like clockwork. The door closed behind them. On the table, Regina laid out a leather portfolio. We've been following your performance, she said, smoothly. Your ability to de-escalate customer issues, your consistency, your professionalism, those qualities are rare. We'd like to offer you a position at Innovate Corp. Sarah blinked. Me? Regina slid the folder across the table. Inside was an employment contract, $75,000 salary. Comprehensive healthcare benefits, including pediatric coverage. 3 months of prepaid rent in a corporate apartment. A signing bonus big enough to buy a new car. Sarah's mouth went dry. This was more than money. It was freedom. A home. A chance for Emma to sleep in a crib, not the backseat of a Civic. I don't even have a degree, she stammered. We value talent over paperwork, Regina said with a soft smile. And your numbers speak louder than a diploma. But then she dropped the catch. We'd need you to start tomorrow morning. That means resigning from Tech Vision today. It's a sensitive role. We're launching a new platform and need someone familiar with Tech Vision's customer systems. Sarah stiffened. It wasn't just a job offer, it was espionage. From behind one-way glass in the adjacent room, James watched her closely. This was the moment of truth. Would she betray the company that gave her a chance for a better paycheck? And it warm apartment? Sarah stared at the numbers again. The figures blurred. She thought of Emma, of how she kept a spoon in her glove compartment for mixing formula, of how the daycare staff at Tech Vision always saved extra diapers, about to expire. Of her, supervisor who never asked why she picked up so many shifts. Then she asked, "Does your childcare accept infants under a year old?" Regina blinked. "We have partners we can recommend." "No," Sarah said quietly. "That's not what I asked." The air in the room shifted. She slowly closed the folder and pushed it back. "I'm not going to leave Tech Vision like this," she said. "They took a chance on me when no one else would. Even if I'm just another name in the system, they gave me a chance to work, to stand on my own feet. That means something." "Are you sure?" Regina pressed, her act slipping. "For the first time." "I appreciate the offer," Sarah said, standing, "but I won't betray the people who believed in me." She walked out of the room with her chin high and her back straight. James, still hidden, exhaled. She'd passed, and she had no idea. That night, rain slicked the windows of Sarah's car. Emma slept beside her, wrapped in 2 blankets. Sarah stared at her phone, her bank balance barely enough for groceries. She had said no to what seemed like salvation, but something inside her felt lighter. She didn't know it yet, but the decision she just made wasn't the end of the test. It was only the beginning. The next morning, Sarah's inbox lit up with an unusual notification. "Please report to Executive Suite 1500 immediately." Her stomach dropped. The executive level? She'd never even been to the top floor. Her first thought was panic. Had someone found out about her living in the parking lot? Had the Innovate Corp offer been a trap? Was she about to be fired? Her fingers trembled as she adjusted Emma's daycare bag and straightened her collar. She took the elevator alone, watching the numbers tick upward. She remembered the last time she'd been this nervous, at her Tech Vision interview, pregnant and desperate, hoping no one would notice the swelling under her oversized coat. When the doors opened, the space looked like another world. Chrome, glass and sunlight pouring in from floor-to-ceiling windows. A woman stood waiting by the reception desk, Regina Walsh. But this time, she wore a Tech Vision ID badge. Sarah froze. Regina smiled gently. "This way, please." They entered a massive conference room with a panoramic view of the city. At the head of the table sat a man in a crisp navy suit. Sarah recognized him instantly. James Chen. Her voice caught in her throat. "Jim?" He stood and smiled, softer than any photo she'd seen in the company newsletter. "You can still call me Jim, if you'd like." Sarah sank into a chair, her brain scrambling to process the past 48 hours. The recruiter, the job offer, she said slowly, the pieces falling together. That was you? James nodded. I needed to know something, not from your resume, from your heart. He slid a folder across the table. Sarah hesitated. This isn't charity, James said gently. This is recognition. Inside the folder was a new contract, Director of Customer Experience Innovation. Full benefits. Triple her salary. Immediate housing at Tech Vision Towers. She stared at the numbers, but it wasn't the money that made her cry. It was the handwritten note at the bottom of the page, for showing us what our values really mean. Tears blurred. Her vision. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. Why? She whispered. Why go through all this? James leaned forward, voice calm but firm. Because it's easy to reward someone when the world is watching. But I needed to know if you would do the right thing when no one was. That's the kind of leader we need. She blinked through her tears. You want me to be a leader? I want you to help build a program, James said. Something real, something lasting. To make sure no one else falls through the cracks like you almost did. He pressed a button. A building manager entered with keys. To your new apartment across the street. 2 bedrooms, fully furnished. You and Emma can move in today. Sarah felt her world spinning. Just hours ago, she had warmed Emma's bottle using a car adapter and prayed the weather wouldn't drop below freezing. Now she was being offered a future that looked like a dream. Thank you, she whispered. I won't let you down. You never have, James said softly. That evening, Sarah walked into her new apartment, clean, warm, full of light and space. Emma cooed from her new crib, surrounded by toys and blankets far softer than anything they'd ever had. Sarah opened the closet to find tailored workwear in her size. A small welcome note was taped to the door of the nursery. Welcome home. She didn't cry. Not this time. She exhaled, because for the first time in a long while, she felt safe. And tomorrow, she'd wake up not just as an employee, but as a force for change. 5 years later, Sarah Martinez stood at the front of Tech Vision's sprawling auditorium, facing hundreds of shareholders, executives, and employees. Behind her, a digital screen displayed the title of her presentation, The Second Chance Program, 5 Years of Impact. She didn't need to read her notes. The story was etched into her bones. In the past 5 years, she began, her voice steady and confident. Tech Vision has helped over 300 employees move from crisis to career. Single parents, veterans, survivors, people like me. A ripple of warmth moved through the crowd. Our retention rate for program participants is 94%, and over 2/3 have been promoted within 18 months of joining. But numbers only tell. Part of the story. She clicked through slides. Photos filled the screen. Faces smiling beside cubicles, hugging children outside new apartments, shaking hands in boardrooms. There was the young father who used to sleep in his car with his son, now head of IT security. The domestic violence survivor who became a regional sales director. A veteran with PTSD now managing international client relations. People who had once been overlooked, just like she had been. After the presentation, James Chen approached her, his steps slower now, his suit more relaxed. But his smile, as always, warm. Remember when you told me you couldn't imagine being a leader? He said quietly. Sarah laughed, adjusting the vice president badge pinned to her blazer. Now I have to remind myself I ever wasn't one. Her husband, Marcus, Tech Vision's former legal counsel, stood nearby, cradling a sleepy 6-year-old Emma in his arms, her school uniform slightly wrinkled. Sarah's eyes softened. Your big surprise is ready, James said to Emma, winking. Together, they took the elevator to the building's newest addition. The doors opened onto a breathtaking space. Part emergency housing, part childcare facility, part resource center. A plaque gleamed at the entrance, the Martinez Center for Employee Empowerment. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Sarah froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. "You're naming it after me," she whispered. James nodded. "You didn't just survive, Sarah. You built something that's changing how companies care." The center had everything she wished she'd had in her darkest days. A place to sleep, emergency childcare, mental health support, financial coaching. And the most revolutionary part? The pay-it-forward system. Every person helped by the center would eventually become a mentor to someone else. Later that night, after the applause, the handshakes, and the celebration, Sarah tucked Emma into bed in their penthouse apartment. Her daughter yawned. "Tell me the car story again," Emma said. Sleepily, Sarah smiled. It was their ritual. "Once upon a time," she began, brushing hair from Emma's eyes, "there was a mommy and her baby who lived in a car. Not because they wanted to, but because life got hard." "And then what happened?" Emma murmured. "Well," Sarah said softly, "the king of the company turned out to be a kind man in disguise. But the real magic wasn't his help. It was learning that even when things are hard, you can still choose to be good. And if you keep choosing good, sometimes the world finds a way to meet you there." Emma was already asleep before she finished. Sarah stood by the window, looking out across the city. From her view, she could see the corner of the parking lot where it had all started. The recycling bin, the faded yellow lines. The Civic was long gone, but the memory stayed, not as pain anymore, but as purpose. Her desk had a new folder on it now, this one with a nomination form. James Chen was retiring next year, and he'd already told the board who he wanted to succeed him. Her, the girl who once warmed bottles in a car. The woman who never gave up. The leader who believed that sometimes the greatest power doesn't come from wealth or position, but from choosing integrity over and over again, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts.